is Danny Bobrow, President of AIM Dental Marketing, welcoming you to the latest installment of the Practice Perfection web-based education series. Today's presentation is entitled The Art of the Sale: Simplify Case Presentation, Maximize Case Acceptance. Many dentists are uncomfortable having the money discussion with patients. Consequently, they may delegate this all-important conversation to a team member who lacks the experience and credibility for success. The regrettable result is that many patients leave without accepting treatment. Today, you will learn from the master of clinical case acceptance. Dr. Len Tau is one of the top leaders in dental consulting, according to Dentistry Today and many others. He has dedicated his professional life to improving dentistry for both patient and colleague. Len is former head of the dental division of Birdeye, the world's leading online reputation marketing platform. He hosts the popular Raving Patients podcast and is author of the book of the same name. Len lectures internationally on internet marketing, social media, and reputation management to increase dental practice visibility and credibility. Now, before we get to today's event and very special presenter, I want to remind you all that Practice Perfection webcasts run for around 90 minutes. While attendees are in listen-only mode, we invite you at any time to submit your questions or comments using the question button on your screen. We will allow ample time following the presentation to get your questions answered. If we do not get to your question before the webcast, Len has assured me that it will be answered shortly thereafter. Attendance at this presentation entitles you to receive 1.5 hours of continuing education credit with the compliments of Dr. Len Tau and AIM Dental Marketing. Shortly following the webcast, you will be emailed a brief survey and quiz to complete and receive your CE, again at no cost to you. Participants are cautioned about the dangers of incorporating techniques and procedures into their practice if the course has not provided them with adequate clinical experience to allow them to perform them competently. I invite you now to fasten your seatbelt because today Len is going to give you the skill set you need to turn no or maybe into an emphatic yes. Take it away, Len.
Well, thank you, Danny. I really appreciate you having me on and bringing me on to speak to your audience. I do want to mention to the audience a couple things before I begin. Number one, I am not actually selling anything tonight. As you mentioned, I am the head of the dental division for Birdeye, but I'm not pitching Birdeye at all. I will be talking about a number of different companies I use to help my case acceptance, but I'm not selling anything for them, number one. Number two, as you mentioned, I did write a book called Raving Patients to help with some questions. If you want to submit a question, one person that submits a question, I will be giving away a free signed book, which Danny will be selecting at the end of the broadcast. So please submit your questions. And at the end, someone will win a free signed copy of my book called Raving Patients. So, but again, thank you for having me tonight, and I look forward to spending the next 65, 75 minutes talking to you guys. So
looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thanks, Danny. So to begin, I want to just review with you the agenda for today. What is case acceptance, to define and measure it, when and where the art of the sale actually begins, why patients actually say no to treatments, something I refer to as active listening, something I call disarming the patient, the steps involved, your body language during case presentations, and then some payment power tips. So that's the agenda. We're going to get through those different steps during this process. One of my favorite quotes is, "Education without action is just entertainment." And I hope you get entertained tonight, but I actually want you to take action. The goal after tonight is to go in. Tomorrow is Friday. If you work on Friday, great. If not, back in the office on Monday. Go take some of the tips I'm giving you, get working on them, and you should see your case acceptance start to increase. So keep that in mind. For those that don't know who I am, I'm going to share with you a couple of things of why you should actually listen to me. So I actually practice in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I have a fee-for-service practice there. I just moved to Parkland, Florida, just about 2.5 weeks ago. I am commuting to my office 2 days a week, but we are a high quality fee-for-service office. We see about 15 to 18 patients per day. My office is open 3.5 days a week. I have a wonderful associate who works a day and a half. I only work 2 days a week, Mondays and Tuesdays. We see about 30 to 40 new patients per month. My fees are in a very high range, about the 85 to 90th percentile for most fees. We have lots of dentists in my neighborhood. A lot of them are HMOs and PPOs, so I stick out like a sore thumb in a good way. I'm a fee for service. We do not have any insurance participation. We do, I will tell you, accept assignment of benefit, but we don't have any network participation. And I have a very high case acceptance. So my case acceptance is about 85%, just so you know. Okay? So when we talk about case acceptance, which is the topic of conversation for this entire seminar, I want to talk to you about how I define case acceptance, because that's a big deal. Okay? There are actually two possible definitions. So definition number one is treatment plan is presented and the patient agrees to the whole treatment plan that is presented. That is one way to define it. Okay? If you define it that way, your treatment case acceptance is going to be on the lower side, in my opinion. Now, definition number two is that treatment plan is presented and the patient agrees to a portion of the treatment plan that was presented. So if you recommend, 5 crowns and you do 2 of them, that's what I refer to there. So for the purpose of my definition of case acceptance is when something is accepted. Because if they don't accept something, they may not come back again ever, or they may come back only in 6 months for a recare or 4 months for a recare. So you want to get case acceptance by having them do some additional treatment. That is my definition of case acceptance, just so you know. So the goal here is to get the patient to do some treatment. If they do nothing, your case acceptance will be low. Okay? So it's all or nothing here, and a little can turn into a lot. Keep that in mind here as we go through this process. So the average case acceptance is 36%. So I want to repeat that one more time. The average case acceptance across the entire country is about, give or take, 36%, which means that 64% of the time, patients don't accept treatment and go elsewhere potentially. So you are losing a lot of money that simply goes out the door and is not accepted. And I also want to clarify here that I am referring to mostly new patients here, new patient treatment acceptance. I'm not talking about as much hygiene case acceptance. It figures into the number here, but I'm worried about new patients who come in. You have no relationship with them at all. You present treatment to them, and they leave without accepting treatment. That's the focus of what I really want to pay attention to here. Okay? The new patients, the existing patients, they're in hygiene. They trust you. You have a rapport with them, which we'll talk about. That's not as much as what I'm referring to here. So I just wanted to make sure you have an understanding here of where I'm coming from. So hopefully that makes sense. So now, in order to know what case acceptance is in your practice, you need to be able to define it and measure it. So there are some programs that can help you measure your case acceptance. So I'm going to go over, there's a number of them out there that are very popular, and I'm going to spend just a couple seconds here talking about them. The one that I use mostly is Dental Intelligence. Dental Intelligence is a terrific product. That's what I personally use in my practice. I have lots of clients of mine who also use it. And they will not only track your case acceptance, but they will go over lots of your numbers in your office as well. They'll send you daily reports, daily recaps, weekly recaps, monthly recaps. So they do a lot of stuff for you. So that is what I use. That's the one I recommend to all of my clients. So Dental Intelligence. Some other ones that, just so you know, that are out there, I don't have any relationship with them. I don't use them, but I know they're available, are Practice by Numbers, Divergent Dental. Okay? And they're the same type of program. They pull out different numbers from your practice, and they regurgitate the numbers to you and send you reports on how you're doing. So those are those types of products. I recently started using a product strictly to measure my case acceptance, which I recommend people reach out to because I think it's a terrific product. It's newer. A lot of people don't know about it, but it strictly tracks case acceptance. You can create very nice treatment plans, very easy treatment plans with what I call everyday language, not dental language. And that is known as a product called Treatments 24/7. And I think everybody should at least check it out because it's a very cool product that not a lot of people have heard of. And I've been using it for a couple of months. My team uses it, which shows it's really good because when I'm not there, I see it being used a lot. So it's called Treatments 24/7. And you can look it up online. A former office manager created it. They have integrations with with Dentrix, Eaglesoft, and Open Dental. But check it out. It's called Treatment 24/7. But these programs, all of them will measure your case acceptance and tell you how you're doing or how you're not doing so well. So moving forward is, when does the art of the sale actually start? Okay. So this is a very important part of what I teach during my 3.5-hour session. And this is a smaller session, but I want to talk about this because this is a very big part of what makes me me. Okay. And it's the fact that the art of the sale actually begins on the very, very first patient interaction. The very first phone call, whether it's with a team member or with myself when I speak to new patients. And just so you know, guys, I speak to most new patients who reach out to the office. And a lot of times it's on the weekends when we're not open. I get a message from my messaging service. I call them on the phone and speak to new patients who are looking to find out more about what we do in the office. That's when the art of the sale begins. You never have a
Len, if I can, to make a first impression, right?
Yes, correct.
Yep.
You never
and
have
this
a
is one
second chance to
reason.
make first impression.
Yep. And this is one of the big reasons we were so excited to have you on Practice Perfection, Len, is because our philosophies are so in alignment. And while I was listening to you, I don't know why it never occurred to me, but you think of your practice as a cell, a single cell organism, and you've got the outside world, and then you've got what's happening inside. The telephone really kind of determines how permeable that cell membrane is, and our good critters trying to get in that are being blocked. And that all depends on the skill set. So I'm so happy that you begin your discussion about the art of the sale with where it does begin, which is the first touch point, and that you're underscoring the importance that you only get one chance to make a first impression.
And a lot of time I want that to be myself because I'm the one that's and end up being most trusted in the practice. And also, just so you know, guys, when it comes to presenting treatments and presenting finances to the patients, that's what I do in my practice. That's what makes me very different than your typical dentist. I'm the financial coordinator and the treatment coordinator. I do that myself.
I think, right. The other thing it shows, and that you answer the phone, is that you're willing to lead by example. You're not just, and it's got to earn big credibility in the eyes of your team. It's like, well, if Dr. Tau is answering the phone and doing a great job, then we know that we can do it too.
Well, I also, just so you know, Danny, I learned very early. I've been in my practice 14 years now. I learned year one how to use Dentrix. I took my own Dentrix trainings because if someone wasn't in the office, I can run the office by myself. I mean, I can answer phone. I know how to use Dentrix. I called every insurance company. I know the insurance better than most people because I called them and I learned how to do it. That's what I did.
Right. And it doesn't mean that you do it, but you know what to do, and you lead by example, and now you can effectively delegate, and people understand that you've been in the trenches, so it's not unreasonable to expect the same performance from them.
It's the same reason I have the credibility with people with bird eye because I'm a dentist and I know how to deal with that as well. That's just how it is. Okay. It all goes to the same point. I preach what I live. I live what I preach. Same thing. But it starts with the first interaction with the patient, whether it's on the phone, like I said, or it's on the website. And I want to spend a couple of minutes talking about this because you need to make it easy for the patients to reach out to the practice. There are so many people nowadays that do not want to pick up the phone and call anymore. you have to have ways for them to make appointments on the website. So I have a book online option here, and that connects directly to Dentrix, so someone can make an appointment with one click of the mouse and schedule in my Dentrix. So you have to make it easy for them. Here you'll see I have a question, ask Dr. Tau. I have a chat service where patients can reach out to me, and I'm the one who handles this in my office. I get chats on an everyday basis from people saying, is this Dr. Tau? Am I chatting with him? And I say, yes, it is. How can I help you? And I've converted patients from chatters to spending $20,000 or $30,000 cases because it's me doing it. It's the credibility I've earned with them. If you don't have a chat service,
Yep. Well, I don't know if you were going to elaborate on it, but you even gone so far as to do sort of your own A/B test between live and chat bots.
Yep, I have that. Yep, that's what I'm going to go over. So okay. I have Bird Eye, and again, this isn't about Bird Eye, but Bird Eye, and there's plenty of chat bots out there, but Bird Eye has a chat bot that lets you, the patient ask a question, and if it's answered automatically, if not, I will answer it, and I will chat with the patient. But I've converted so many patients because I've taken the time to chat with them and eventually speak to them on the phone before they even come into the office. So when someone goes to my website, you see the box here says, have a question, ask Dr. Tau. When the patient clicks on it, it literally says here, it asks them for their name, it asks them for their phone number and a message. And when they click send, it sends that message to my cell phone number or our dashboard, and I can correspond directly with the patient from my phone. And it goes to their cell phone, and we're having a chat. That's what it's like. Now,
I think the only caveat is that if you're going to choose to go that route, and again, I apologize if you're getting to this, you've got to have somebody that's able and willing to respond in a timely way if they're going to go live.
Well, and not necessarily because it's a web chat. We are on their cell phone. They're no longer on our website, on the doctor's website. They're on their cell phone. So if I waited till the next morning to answer, it goes right to their top of their inbox on their text messages, and they'll see the text message come in. So that's not necessarily true. There's plenty of people.
Well,
I don't
it's not true as long as they get a message saying that we're unavailable right now. We'll respond to you next.
Well, and they do say that. They do say that.
Okay.
Correct. Now, Danny mentioned about A/B testing. So I also use a live chat. So this is someone that's on my website chatting for me. Okay, for the practice. I'm not doing this. They gather the information and they go ahead and they will go ahead and send me a chat archive, and I will reach out to patients that want me to reach out for them. So this is this is A/B testing I do because I can, and this is a company called Simplify. So it doesn't matter what type of chat you have, but you need to make it easy for patients to chat with you during hours and after hours, and that's what I've allowed here. And it's about a 50-50 split. I get, the similar numbers of chats each week from each of the services, but I've converted $20,000 and $30,000 cases from each of these types of chats. But again, it starts the art of the sale as soon as I reach out to them, especially on the weekends. And I'll share with you a very quick story I like to tell using Simplify. A Saturday afternoon, a woman reaches out and says, how much do you charge for dentures? I need a new set. And it was a Saturday. I was with my son. I called the woman on the phone. Someone else picked up and said there was nobody there by that number, and I figured the person didn't exist. I went out with my son. We were playing golf on the golf range, and about an hour and a half later, the phone rings, and there's this woman again. Her name was Cynthia, and Cynthia called me and said, hi, this is Cynthia. I missed a call from you. And I said, Cynthia, it's Dr. Tau. How can I help you? She said, I need a new set of dentures. How much do you charge? And I will never – by the way, guys, I charge $5,500 for a set of dentures. Okay, I'm in the 95th percentile, maybe 100th percentile. So if I just told her it was $5,500, she would have probably hung up on me. Well, I said to you, can you tell me, Cynthia, why you need a new set of dentures? And she explained to me she went to another office in Philadelphia. She now lives in Delaware, 2.5 hours from my office, she told me. But she hated her set of dentures. They were too small. She couldn't chew with them. She had an immediate denture placed about a year and a half ago and hated what they looked like. She also told me that it took 2 visits to make her denture. So I proceeded to tell her that it was 5 visits that we make it. And she was like, wow, I can't believe it takes you 5 visits to make dentures. That's great. So we spoke for like 20 minutes, and eventually she got to the point of asking me, how much does it cost for a set of dentures? And I closed my eyes and I said, Cynthia, it costs $5,500 for a set of dentures. And she said to me, unsurprisingly, she said, and it was a Saturday, Dr. Tau, if I come in on Monday with $1,000 in cash, can we get started on a set of dentures? And I was like, you betcha. So that weekend we had this big storm in Philadelphia. She didn't want to drive 2.5 hours. She personally called me on Sunday to tell me that I'm not going to be able to make it on Monday. Could we move the appointment to Wednesday? It was on August 5th, I think was the day, because it was the day my associate started. She came in. So I told my team that Monday what the story was, and they said, Len, there's no way this patient's coming in to see you. No chance. She's punking you. So lo and behold, she showed up 2 hours earlier on that Wednesday, and instead of $1,000, she brought $1,500 into her because she's so impressed with the fact that I spent 25 minutes talking to her about how I do my dentistry in my office when she wasn't even a patient. That is how you start the art of the sale. But it was all because of a live chat that was started on my website, and nobody else would return her call. And she's thrilled. She wanted to look like Whitney Houston. I think I made her look like Whitney Houston. So that's the point here. So the art of the sale starts on that first patient interaction, but it starts with either a phone call or a web chat. So keep that in mind. Hopefully that answers some of your questions there. So let's move forward to get into some of the big content, which is why do patients say no to treatments? Okay? And we want them to say, yes, we don't want to hear no, and maybe it's better, but we definitely want him to say yes. So number one reason is they don't feel a connection to the office. So we are so busy nowadays, especially because of COVID, okay? We have to stop rushing in and out of treatment rooms. We need to slow down. We need to take the time to get to know the patients, especially new ones. We want to ask them about their family and their jobs, talk to them about what's going on in their lives, their oral health goals, and address their concerns. We have to make them feel comfortable. Okay, this will not only go a long way to improving your case acceptance, but it will also lead to loyal patients who are happy to refer you their friends and family. So and the way I got this list, by the way, guys, is I've been in a lot of offices over the years, and I've interviewed a lot of patients, and I got this list from them. So these are the lists I got from actual patients as to why they don't buy. So the number one reason was they didn't feel a connection to the office. It wasn't have to do anything about money. The money thing comes a little later. But they didn't feel a connection to the office. That's number one. Number two, they don't find value in what you are offering, or they don't understand the value in dentistry. You can no longer tell patients they need periodontal therapy or a crown and expect them to blindly follow your recommendations. You have to educate them about their conditions and make sure they understand the possible consequences of ignoring it. So most people use intraoral cameras. They have hand mirrors to show them exactly what's going on in their mouth. You have videos that you show, okay? Brochures. These are things that everybody has. You know, what do you do differently, okay, to actually make them aware of what's going on in their mouth? So one of the best programs you guys can use for case acceptance is a program called DDSGP. It is an app for the iPad or an iPhone, but I use it on the iPad. DDSGP. It was developed by a dentist by the name of Bob Marcus. He's in California. He's retired now. He's a consultant now, but his app is probably one of the best investments I've ever made in my life. It's 10 years old. I've had it for 10 years. The cost was $399 back then, so it cost me $39 a year, and I've sold plenty of cases because I use this app to basically show with my finger, and if you look it up, you'll see use your finger to show different phases of treatment, and like on periodontal disease, how treatment moves along and during periodontal disease. So patients will accept treatment because of what you're showing them. So they need to understand the value of dentistry. Okay, so take a look if you can at DDSGP. Go to their website, check it out. Danny, I can give you a link if you want to put it in some type of email you send out afterwards, so they can see the link.
Sure,
and
that'd be
go
terrific.
to the site and check it out.
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. Happy to.
Number three is you don't listen. Okay. We have a habit of not listening to what the patients have to say. Patients say no for many reasons. Okay. But we have to listen to what our patients are saying and address any concerns they have. If someone comes in and they want to address number 7 and we focus on other teeth, they're going to say, this guy doesn't listen to me. So I was never the best listener in the world. I really wasn't. Okay. Just so you know, guys, I bought my practice 14 years ago from a dentist who unfortunately committed suicide. And I had a great office I bought. I had a coach I hired. The coach pulled me aside and said, Len, you're a great clinician, but you don't listen very well. I was like, what are you talking about? Of course I listen well. She goes, no, you need to go ahead and start recording yourself when you speak to people because you do not listen to what they're saying. And I recorded myself, and you can clearly see that I did not listen to them. So I took listening classes and learned a process called active listening that I'm going to review with you in just a couple of seconds, okay? So I want to make sure you understand. We're going to go over that in a couple of seconds. So active listening is coming up. The fourth reason is you don't properly follow up. And that's another problem that we have is that we don't follow up. Most patients don't accept treatment right away. They want to take time to think about it, okay, and review their options and talk with their spouses, talk to their family members to go over what they should do. But chances are patients aren't going to call the schedule on their own. You have to follow up. And we don't do a very good job of that. In my regular sessions that I give, my 3.5-hour sessions, almost every practice says, I don't have a follow-up system that we keep tabs on. They have a 1-1-1, which is 1 day, 1 week, or 1 month, or 2-2-2, 2 weeks, 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, but they don't do it. You have to follow up with them. If you don't follow up, you're going to have such a low case acceptance, okay? So there's a couple of things I recommend when it comes to this. Number one is when someone says, I need to think about it, or maybe, okay, when they come up to the front desk, someone needs to ask permission from them. Can I follow up with you next week? Is that okay? Get their permission to do that. If someone says, no, I'm not interested with you following up, that's a problem. They are not buying from you. That's a clear sign that they have no interest in doing your treatment. So keep that in mind, okay? And number two is I use a product that I highly, highly recommend for communication. It's called Modento, Modento. And one of the best features about Modento is they have something called a voicemail drop. And what this is, and I love talking to patients, but I just don't have time in my life to call every single patient. So what this is I record my voice on my iPhone, and it's in the voice memos, and it's, hi, this is Dr. Tau. You were in my office recently and unfortunately didn't accept our treatment recommendations. I was calling to check in and follow up to see if you have any questions for me or ready to schedule treatments. If you have any questions, please give us a call in the office. I gave my number, or call my cell phone, and I also give my cell phone number. Looking forward to hearing back from you soon. Within the Modento dashboard, you find the patient's name, you hit voicemail drop, and what the product does is it calls the patient, but not really calls them. It shows as a missed call on their phone, and it drops a voicemail into their voicemail with me with my voice. So it thinks I called them, but I really didn't. That is one of the best features I've ever seen in anything. It replaces Lighthouse and Demand Force Solution Meets. That's what it does. But that is one of the best features. So that helps me follow up with the patient. Okay? So again, number one is you don't feel a connection. Number two, they don't find value in what you're offering. Number three is you don't listen. Number four is you don't follow up. And number five is you don't offer the right financing. It's better you offer financing, you don't offer the right financing. Okay, most people, I would say, and I'm curious, and again, maybe you can check it in, and when people respond, is how many people actually are accepting Care Credit. I love Care Credit. I think it's the bomb. I use it, but it's not the only thing I use. I use a lot more than Care Credit, and I'm going to go over that towards the end. But if you only offer Care Credit, you're missing out on so much business because Care Credit simply cannot approve everybody for financing. So if you don't offer the right financing, that's why other people are saying no as well. So those are the 5 reasons why patients say no. But I want to circle back to the one I think is most important to spend some time on, which is the active listening process. Okay? So let's talk about active listening. So active listening is to make sure that you actually hear what your patients are actually saying. Okay? So the way to improve your listening skills is to practice what we term active listening. And I took a class on this, and I spent about a year learning to do this. But once I actually listened and make sure the patients know I'm listening to them, my case acceptance went up dramatically. Okay? And this is where you make a conscious effort to hear not only the words that another person is saying, but more importantly, the complete message they are communicating. Now, in order to do this, you must pay attention to the other person very carefully. And you cannot allow yourself to become distracted by whatever else may be going on around you, or by forming counter arguments when the other person is speaking. Okay, so that's a big deal. So when it comes to distractions, one of the things I highly recommend you do if you're using a smartwatch is to take off your smartwatch. Okay, because if you're being distracted, which I would get a lot of, your patients will get annoyed because you're looking at your smartwatch a lot. So there are 5 steps to this process called active listening. So number 1 is paying attention. So you want to give your patient your undivided attention and acknowledge that the message they're actually portraying. And you also want to recognize what's referred to as the nonverbal communication that they're speaking. So here are some tips. You want to look at the speaker directly or look at the patient directly. You want to put aside any distracting thoughts. So if something just happened with your family, another patient, put it aside. Please don't mentally prepare a rebuttal from what they're saying. Again, avoid being distracted by environmental factors such as your Apple Watch. And listen to the patient's body language. Those are very important things to show you're paying attention to them. Okay? So that's number 1, is to pay attention. Now, number 2 is show that you are listening. So you want to show the patient that you're listening. And you can use body language to show them this. So what are some body language? And we'll talk a little bit more about body language next. But some body language is you can nod occasionally. Simply nodding shows that you're listening, believe it or not. And if you can see me on video, I'd show you that I'm nodding right now. Okay? I nod a lot because it shows that I listen to them. Smiling and other facial expressions is another way to show that you're listening. You also don't want to lean back in the chair, as some people do, across their legs. Sit up where your posture is open and interested. That also shows that you're listening. And you also want to encourage the patient to continue speaking with small verbal comments like yes and uh-huh. That also shows that you're speaking. One other tip I want to give is to show that you're listening too is don't take notes, pay attention, and have one of your dental assistants come in the room and take notes as to what the patient is saying as you're doing this interview. Listen to what's saying, and if you're taking notes, you're not listening. So have someone else take the notes for you. Number 3 is to provide feedback. Okay? So you want to reflect on what has been said by paraphrasing. What I'm hearing is that you said this, or it sounds like you're saying that. You want to ask questions to clarify certain points. So what do you mean when you say this? Is this what you mean when you said that? And you want to periodically summarize what the speaker's comments were. Okay? What you also don't want to do is respond emotionally to what was said. Okay? Now, number 4 is deferring judgment. You cannot interrupt. It is a complete waste of time. What happens when you interrupt is they will forget what they were saying and they will become even more frustrated. So do not interrupt the patient when they are speaking. Okay? You want to allow the patient to finish the point before asking any questions. And again, don't interrupt. And last but not least, you want to respond appropriately. The process of active listening is basically designed to encourage respect and understanding from your patients. So you're going to be gaining some really important information from them and perspective on what they're looking to do. So you add nothing to the conversation by putting them down or being disrespectful. So you want to respond appropriately. So you want to be candid and open in your response and honest in your response.
And Len,
you want to be, yes.
If I could just underscore that, I suspect that most people don't feel that they're condescending or judging. I think that sometimes our own enthusiasm can actually get in our way. We as people who do this day and night or day in and day out, we pretty much feel that we know where the patient is going. And we almost feel like well, if I kind of finish the sentence for them, I'm going to show how much I am listening to them, and that I really am expert and someone they should trust and respect. And while that's understandable, it achieves the opposite outcome, which is people don't feel like they're listened to. So it takes a great deal of patience and sometimes forbearance to just sit quietly and allow the person to articulate themselves, and then do what you say is in standard active listening technique is to confirm understanding. Say, do you mind if I confirm my understanding with you by just sharing what I've heard? So I don't think it's so much it doesn't matter. And we also engage sometimes in what's called comparative reality. We think that we can share a similar experience, and that's going to show that we're empathetic, when it sort of tends to invalidate what they're saying. It's just a minor point I thought was worth underscoring.
Yeah, and unfortunately, you also have to show that you're listening when you put treatment plans together and focus on their chief complaints. Because if you don't focus on their chief complaint, they're going to say, this guy didn't listen to what I said. So it has to follow through the whole end of the process. Okay? So
right.
You have to show that you listen to the patient. Like I said, I was not a good listener. I would talk over patients. You can't do that. Now, when you read my reviews, it actually says Dr. Tau actually listened to me, because I'm very careful. I'm always asking questions. I'm letting them speak. I'm actually following through on what they're saying, which is really an important part of the active listening process.
And showing that you're listening is equally important too, because there are some people out there. I'm one of them. I've taken many years of courses and stuff, and so I am a good listener, and I don't show it, because when you're in a lecture format, you don't have to show it. Nobody cares, right? But when you're in a selling situation, yeah, you have to really engage, be at the right eye level, lean in, as you said, nod, do all those things to show the person that you're listening, because they need to know. You need to demonstrate that you're listening to them.
100%. So I agree with 100%. So the most importantly is you want to treat the other person in a way that you would want to be treated as well. I think that's the ultimate thing. You want to be respectful. I'll tell you right now, stop telling patients they need to floss. That's a big, they get chided. Don't put people down. Don't say, always have a positive comment. I call it a compliment sandwich. If you say something bad, always follow it with something before good and something after good. So you have to be careful how you're talking to these patients. But it does take a lot of determination to be an active listener. It took me about a year to master this technique. We are a creature of our old habits. And if your listening skills are as bad as mine were, it will take a long time for you to break these bad habits. So these are the 5 key techniques that you have to learn. 1 is pay attention. 2, show you're listening. 3, provide feedback. 4, defer judgment. And 5 is respond appropriately. And if you start using these active listening techniques, you will become a much better communicator. You will definitely, I think, improve your workplace productivity. You'll develop better relationships with your patients, and I guarantee you'll increase your case acceptance. So that is active listening. There's many things that are taught online. You can look it up online, but spend time to learn this active listening technique, because it will change your life, in my opinion. So I want to move on to the next section, which I refer to as disarming the patients. And this is probably a big thing you need to do to get the actual patients to say yes to your treatment. Okay? And there's about 7 or 8 things that I talk about when I talk about disarming the patient. I used to videotape myself during my case presentations, and there was a moment in time that I would witness in the presentation that I would see the patient relax and their body would just like melt into the chair. That I knew that if I can get the patient money, which is the other problem, they can't afford it, but if I can get them financing, or they had the finances, that they were disarmed and they would actually buy from it. And I watched this over and over again. And you'd say, okay, there's a disarming moment. So if you start videotaping yourself, because patients come in, they're nervous, they're scared. They think you're going to, overcharge them. They think dentistry is expensive. They come in with preconceived notions about dentistry, and there's many issues they come in with. If you can get them away from that or even disarm them before the appointment potentially with things you've told them on the phone. This is a really important part of the process of getting them to say yes to treatment. So I want to talk to you about how I disarm the patient and what I do here. So this is, the whole process is because you want them to say yes to treatment. So here are the steps that are to disarm the patient. So step one is you want to establish a rapport. So as I mentioned in the beginning, why patients say no is you need to find time to make patients comfortable. We are so busy running from operatory to operatory that we don't take time to consider the patient, things from the patient perspective. I don't want you just to walk in and introduce yourself and then lean the patient back and get to work. Okay, like I said, patients are nervous and they need warming up. They do. Okay, you want to make this lasting impression, and a big part of that is having to converse about topics that are not necessarily dental related. Okay, so I would ask them questions like, what are they planning to do on the weekend, or what did they do the previous weekend? Talk about the weather. Ask them how they're doing during COVID. Again, you want to establish this rapport. Now, just so you know, I established the rapport on that first phone call. So that's why I talk to the patients on the phone before they come in. I take care of that check mark before they come in the office if I speak to them. And I speak to most new patients who are scheduled in my schedule. I don't speak to most new patients who are in the hygiene schedule. But I speak to most patients in my schedule because I want to check this box before they come in the office. I want to find out what they're coming in for. I want to find out a lot of these things. I want to talk about the money issue potentially. I want to ask them some key questions. So I get this done, and I want to find out a lot of things on the phone with them before they come in, just so you know. Okay? So establish this rapport is like step one in disarming the patient. Get them comfortable. Warm them up. Step two is you want to ask them key introductory questions. Now, these are dental-related questions. Okay? After establishing them that they're in a comfortable atmosphere, there are 3 questions I would ask them. And there's more, but the 3 main questions are, what brings you in today? Okay, why are they coming in to see you? When was the last time you saw a dentist? And were there any problems during your last dental visit? Because you don't want to repeat what issues they had. I actually have my patients fill out a form. And again, Danny, I can give this to you and you can hand it out to them, the attendees. But I actually give them what's called the Please Handle Me with Care form. And it's a form that basically states that they have these things they don't like when they come to the dentist. It's a partnership act. They don't like long waits. They don't like lying down for long periods of time. They want to know the cost up front. They don't like the sound of the drill. They don't like cotton in their mouth. There's things I want to avoid to make their experience better. And patients never filled this out before, and they love it that I ask them these things. So you want to ask.
So this is a written survey that you hand out to patients? You have your team do?
It's not written. It's in my new patient health history forms that they fill out as part of the health history. So I get this information before they come in, so I can review it and discuss it with them. So I have it in your format. I'll give you a written form of it because it used to be on my papers. Now it's in digital format.
Terrific. Thank you.
So we can give that and they can see what I did here. But it's called the Please Handle Me with Care form. And on the same note, it doesn't work as well with COVID because I can't do some of the things. We also have them fill out a comfort menu, which talks about the things we do from a comfort level, which is, iPads iPods with music on it, which movies they want to watch because we have Netflix and some other things. Do they want blankets or pillows, which we won't use now because of COVID? But they filled out a comfort menu too. So that was helpful during, pre-COVID times. So again, ask key introductory questions. Third, you want to establish that time is not an obstacle. So many times when considering future treatment, especially same-day treatments, patients will ask, how long will it take? And I like to, if I had people live here, and I'm not saying live, but if I can communicate with them right now, I would ask someone, hey, if you were doing a 13-DO filling on someone and ask you how long it takes, what would the right answer be? And most people say, well, that would take me a half hour, and that's the wrong answer. Okay? Giving the patient a set time is not the right answer here. And the reason that is because the person will then say, well, I don't have a half hour to wait. So don't ever give a time frame like that. What you want to say to them is the best way to respond to that basically is by answering the question with a question. So if the patient asks how long it will take, my reply would be, what time do you need to be out of the office today? Okay, this will give you a much better idea or a much clearer idea if same-day treatment is an option. I love the same-day treatment. Same-day treatment prevents the patient from canceling. You increase your production on the same day. That's really important. I'll share with you a really funny story because it goes to this point. My associate was there. It was like our first or second day there at the beginning of August. Patient comes in, needed an incisal facial composite on number 25. It was a simple filling, no Novocaine needed or anything. And patient was seen in hygiene. She came in and I said, what happened? She said, well, the patient didn't want to stay. I go, why not? She goes, well, I told him it would take a half hour. I'm like, that doesn't take a half hour. She goes, well, what would you have said? I said, I would have told him, what time do you need to be out of here? So for the next 20 minutes, the patient was in the front desk talking to the front desk person in my office while we sat up there chatting among ourselves. He had plenty of time. If she had said, how long do you need it to be? And she said to the patient, what time do you have to be out of the office by? If he said 15 minutes, I would have said, done. Let's get done in 15 minutes. The guy happened to be a constant canceller, and he scheduled the appointment like a week and a half out, and guess what? He canceled that appointment too. So be very careful about establishing that time is not an obstacle, okay? You also want to remove the fear. You want to use reassuring terms. This is painless, pain-free, easy, simple. Something we do all the time, okay? I sometimes put my hand on the patient's shoulder and pat them and say, this is easy, we do this all the time, don't worry about it, I'll take good care of you. One of the things I do a lot of is I give painless injections. And many times, and I teach this, and I'll give a little clinical tip here. If you want to give a painless injection, this is what you need to do. And every single time, this is what I do. So you use a topical gel. It's from a company called Edge Pharmacy Services, and the product is called Profound Gel. And Edge Pharmacy Services is in Vermont, and it's Profound Gel, and there's it's a compound of 4 drugs, and you put that on the tissue for about a minute, and take the cotton wool out so it doesn't slough the tissue, and in about a minute they will not feel anything. You follow that up with 1 carpule of 4% citinest plain, so it's a neutral pH, so there's absolutely no burning they feel. And then right after you do the 1 carpule of citinest plain, 4%, use 1 carpule of whatever you want, whether it's lidocaine or septicaine, and those 3 things, the topical gel, Edge Pharmacy Services, Profound Gel, the citinest plain, 4%, and the other drug, whatever you use, the patient will feel absolutely nothing 99.9% of the time. And patients will flock to you because of that. So remove the fear. Tell them it's going to be painless, because it will be. So if you can do that, you disarm them. Number 5 is ensure that treatment can be made affordable for them. So almost all the time, you need to make sure that you will try to make treatment affordable to them, whether it's through financing or easy payment plans in the office, however you do it. I use financing. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But you want to make sure they understand that treatment can be made affordable to them if they qualify. And again, a lot of times people don't accept treatment is because they think it's expensive. And if treatment's expensive, they're not going to do it. I had a patient who told me treatment was expensive in the past, and she didn't do it, agreed to $18,000 in treatment. That's expensive treatment, but she agreed to it because I had disarmed her properly. Okay? Number 6 is you want to use what I call everyday languages. Okay? So everyday languages is something that, it's important to understand, is that you need to talk about terms they understand. So when you have terms like caries, caries, they don't know what it is. You talk about a cavity. For periodontal disease, use the word infection. They have a gum infection. People respond well to infection. Okay, they want the infection out of their body. Okay, for a periapical pathology, I don't use that term. I call it a pus pocket in the bone. They relate pus to an infection. They want it out. They'll respond appropriately to that and want to go and get it treated. So you want to use everyday languages, words that they understand, that are not too technical. one of the things I laugh at, and I ask patients all the time, we show our radiographs to them on the big screen. They have no idea what we are showing them. No idea. And I've been in offices and they're like, they look like toes, they say. So we show that so we should really stop showing them things because they have no idea what you're looking at. And then you want to use analogies whenever possible. So what are some analogies I use? So, and I've learned a lot during my own seminar that I give. So analogies I use, doing dental work without a deep cleaning is like trying to fix a house. So doing the dental work with a bad foundation, which is inflamed gingiva bone. That's an example of one of the analogies I use. The other analogy I use, which is pretty common, is when someone comes in and they're a dentalist, top and bottom, and they want to get implants, and they ask me how many implants do they need. Well, in the lower jaw, it's 2 implants. The upper jaw is 4 implants. And they say, why is that? So my analogy there is the lower jaw is like really good bone, strong bone. The upper jaw, you need 4 because it's like drywall, and you need drywall anchors. The bone is really, really soft. So when they do that, they understand that. And one of the best analogies I heard was in my class where someone talked about when people lose their teeth move. Their analogy is like when someone goes to the library and takes a library book off the bookshelf, the book shifts. That's what happens to your teeth. That was a really good analogy as well. So those are just some examples, is to use analogies. People relate to these analogies. Now, the last step to disarm the patient is you want to focus on same-day treatments. And I want to introduce you to a new term, and that term is today. We have to get into the habit of using the term today. So the assistant can say, the doctor will examine you and you can address any concerns today. Or the treatment coordinator can say, here is your treatment plan. The doc that you need, and that we can get started today if you want to. So if you use the term today more, the patients will understand. And just so you know, if I have an opening in my schedule, I'm basically temporarily unemployed. So there's many times if someone comes into hygiene and they need treatments, I will pull them out of hygiene when they're done and offer them a little bit of a discount to get them in my schedule. Because again, if they cancel, I lose even more money. So don't be afraid to give them a little bit of a discount to get them to do treatment while they're there. Not that big a deal, okay? So just keep that in mind, all right? And one other tip I'll give you is offer free consultation. If you don't offer a free consultation, that's a very big barrier to case acceptance. I feel that if you don't give them a free consultation, they're not going to want to come in. I know my case acceptance is really high. I need to get them in the office. That's my goal.
Let me ask you a question about that. Yeah.
Sure.
When did you always offer a free consultation?
Always.
Okay. Well, I was hoping you were going to say no, and you had an epiphany or got religion at some point, because to this day I have health partners, which is how we refer to our clients, who resist it because their mindset is that if you offer a discount or something free, you're going to be attracting, quote, low quality patients, end quote. And I was wondering if you might speak to that.
No, I agree with you 100%, and that's not exactly true. There are many people who want to come in. They don't want a barrier to come into the office. They want to come in, and I will even go, Danny, to the extent is I always say this. You know, what does an exam cost me? It costs me my time. What does a set of X-rays cost me? It costs me $0 because they're digital. Okay, so I will be more than happy to do a set of X-rays on somebody if I can sell a $20,000 case. I've brought people in on free consults, and I sold $20,000 cases that I never thought were going to do treatment. So I think
let me be clear in my opinion, Len. As I'm completely on board. I think that's perhaps understandable, but a misinformed mindset. If you think about your own behavior, if you think about the fact that people that are shopping for Learjets and yachts, they probably got a free ride on it before they bought it. All right.
Of course.
So the key is to qualify the prospect, but then, yeah, if you can't get them into the office and get them to meet you and work your magic, you're going to limit your success. And so I completely concur and endorse offer a free exam. It doesn't cost you anything, and the benefit is way outweighs it. Because I think, and if you were to poll your patients, first of all, they might not even remember what prompted them to come in. But would you rather offer a one-time freebie, if you want to call it that, or rely on insurance on dental benefit plans to drive your new patient flow, where you're committing forever to a discounted fee schedule. I mean, once that freebie is out of the way, you charge what you want to charge.
Exactly. So, just to be very transparent with you, one of the biggest boons to my practice, one of my biggest successes, believe it or not, back 10 years ago was Groupon. I was the first dentist in Philadelphia to offer a Groupon deal. Actually, I was the first dentist in Philadelphia to offer a Groupon deal. And that was 10 years ago, and I got 500 new patients overnight from that Groupon deal. It was a huge success for me. I ended up getting over $300,000 from those patients in my practice. And to this day, I still offer a Groupon, and it's just for an exam and cleaning, because I want the patients to come in the office. And I know going into this that 30% of the patients have no interest in doing treatment. 30% of the patients have no money, but 40% of the patients, the numbers show, want to do treatment. And I'm willing to give away something to get something. And that's my philosophy on things.
Right.
You have to understand, I think differently. I don't have blinders on.
Yeah, terrific. Now you got the big picture. I had an employee, an intern, and I asked her about her dental care, and she says, I just wait for the next Groupon offer to come in. And I asked her maybe 8 months or 10 months, I don't remember exactly, later, I said, how's it going with your Groupon hopping? She said, oh, no, I found a dentist I like, and I'm staying with him. So she used Groupon until she connected with somebody. Yeah, but eventually they stop hopping if you treat them right.
And we treat them just as if they're a full paying patient. We give them the same exact time, give them everything. We give them an hour of cleaning by my hygienist, and that's what you do. And the Groupon reviews are just as good as anything else because we treat them well. So
well, that's a very important point too, because you self-fulfill your own undesired outcome if you in your mind and your team say, here comes another bargain shop, here comes another Groupon hopper. Well, and then you give them, the very basic treatment, and so they're not impressed, and they're going to keep hopping.
Right, or they leave a bad review too. So that's the other thing. So, but like I said, if you go in with the mindset that you're gonna sell every one of them, don't do Groupon. But if you go in the mindset, like I said, 30% have no money, 30% don't want treatment, but 40% are willing to do treatment and they have the money, I'd rather have 40% of something than 0% of zero. So that's my philosophy there.
Mine too.
And it doesn't cost you anything. It costs you an exam, cleaning, and X-ray, and your exam and X-rays are free, and your cleaning is your hygienist time. So I mean,
it's called value added to the consumer, right? What does it cost you versus what the perception of value is to the new patient, and it's huge.
100%.
It's huge. Yep.
Exactly. So these steps, establish rapport, ask key introductory questions, establish that time is not an obstacle, remove the fear by using reassuring terms, ensuring that treatment can be made affordable to them by using some sort of financing or payment plan, using everyday languages, using analogies whenever possible, and you're focusing on same-day treatments. If you do these steps, you will be able to disarm the patient, again, if you can find them money, okay? And again, there comes a time when you remove the fear, when you show them that it's not going to be a scary proposition for them, and money is removed from the conversation, they will disarm, and they will relax in the chair. And as long as you can get money from the financing company, because a lot of times they can't afford it, and they can't get money, they don't accept it. Someone said to me in one of my classes, Danny, if someone wants to do treatment but they don't have money, is that considered case acceptance? I'm like, no, they have to have the means to pay the bill if you want to get case acceptance. So
spirit being willing is not sufficient. But I like the new phrase, instead of show me the money, find them the money. I love it.
Exactly, find them the money. So, and I'm curious as to questions we'll get on the disarming the patients. So. I want to move on, and I want to talk about body language. And this is a little bit difficult to do, and I want to apologize because we're not using a camera here. But I want to spend a few minutes talking about body language. I love the study of psychology, and I study this, and it's a communication model that's called Mehrabian's communication model. And we plan out what we are going to say and don't give much thought to a nonverbal communication. Okay, so this is what this is. 55% is visual, which is the body language and facial expressions. 38% is vocal, which is the intonation on how something is being said. And 7% is verbal, the words that are being spoken. Okay, and we focus so much on the 7%, we don't focus on the other things. So remember, and the biggest thing that body language does, believe it or not, it proves that people trust you more with this body language skills. And people buy from people they trust. And that's a guaranteed fact. So there are 3 basic body language skills that I want to just talk to you about. So number 1 is what we call the art of eye contact. Number 2 is nodding means more than yes. And number 3 is smiling, which is more difficult now because we have masks on, but smiling as we're dentists and people want to see our teeth. So when it comes to the art of eye contact, there are 3 things I talk about when it comes to eye contact. When you're listening to the patients, you want to squint ever so slightly. It's imperceptible, but your patient's subconscious will register as a nonverbal skill that you actually focus on what they're saying when you squint. And again, this is something I studied for a couple of years, and I've mastered this body language skill. And if you may think it's crazy, but this stuff works really well. When explaining something to the patient, you want to open your eyes a little bit more than normal. As insignificant as it may seem, this conveys openness and honesty about what you are saying. If you open your eyes just a little bit more. And then when you ask a patient a question, you switch back to the squint as you ask the question. So it's squint when listening, open when explaining, and squint when asking a question. So that's the art of eye contact. Now, when it comes to nods, and I talked about nods before, it shows you're listening. Okay? So nodding means more than yes, though. So the single nod, it's like a head bob, reassures them that you are listening to them. Now, an occasional head nod, when a patient is speaking, will reaffirm to them that you're keeping up with what they're saying. And this, in conjunction with the slight eye squints, will really show the patient that you listen to them. Now, multiple nods, and I'm not talking like a bobblehead, but multiple nods shows that you understand what the patient is saying. Okay? That's really important. When they make a big point, you should nod a few times to show recognition of how important is what they just said. Now, there's also something that's called the OIC nod. And this is what they refer to as like the exaggerated slow nod. And you basically raise your chin just a little bit and hold your head back for just about a second before returning it to its normal position. And this is helpful when there's some confusion on either part that's cleaned up. And then you have, and this is amazing, okay, this last nod, which is called the imperceptible suggested nod. And what happens here is the power of suggestion lies in this nod. So when you are asking the patient a question you want them to agree with, you give a tiny nod at the beginning of the question. The patient won't notice it, but their subconscious will, and they will more likely respond positively to the answer. So when I'm talking about financing and I'm saying to them, I'm nodding, if I was able to get you financing, are you going to accept treatment? And when I do that, they say, yeah, sure, no problem. Because I'm literally nodding as I'm saying it. It's a very, very amazing, imperceptible thing, but it's pretty ingenious if you watch it. And then the third is smiling. And again, I said this is a little bit more difficult to do, especially because of COVID, but you want to smile whenever possible. So you're socially distanced, and obviously you can only take the mask off at certain points. But when you greet the patient, if you can, what's that, Danny? Go ahead.
And just briefly underscoring this, because we do the same coaching in our telephone skills mastery, because on the phone you don't have really any of what we call the visual component, which is the nonverbal communication you speak of. Now with COVID, you just pointed out with the masks, your visual component is not as readily available, and so I think that indicates that we learn to master the verbal and the vocal. You know, how we use the words we choose, and that we very carefully choose our words, because now, without being able to show our face, we're needing to rely on those communication components all the more.
100% so. So when it comes to the smiling, when you greet the patient, we have use a toothy smile when you can. You know, a toothy smile impact is twofold. So one, it shows genuine happiness to see the patient, and you are happy to see them, hopefully. And two, it reminds the patient that they came to the dentist. Okay. Number Two, when listening, you want to pull the corners of your mouth outward just enough to where you feel pressure. Now, it's imperceptible to the patient, but it will have a strong effect on their subconscious. And this tiny smile looks like you're happy by default, but it will also instill trust with the patient. And also, when you nod in understanding, you want to give what I call a sweet closed mouth smile. And when you're nodding in understanding, it's like the OIC moments. You can also do a toothy smile. So, and again, I know it's a little bit difficult because you can't see it, but you can look up Albert Mehrabian's body language online and read some of these things because it works really, really well. Or even better, take my class because you'll see this and you'll get an offer later on a discount on the class. But I go over this in much more detail when we are in my full-fledged session. But given that body language speaks almost 8 times louder than your words, you should be considering your mannerisms more than what you say. And I really learned on this body language, okay? So before we wrap up, I want to talk about some what I call payments power tips, okay? And I offer a variety of payment options, and I recommend and suggest you do the same thing. Now, in terms of when you offer them to your patients, my go-to option is always, always, always going to be no interest or some type of interest financing for the patient. And the reason that is because it's always going to be the cheapest option for the patient, the least expensive. So if something is, $4,800, if you present it and say, no interest financing is, $200 a month, if you lead with that, the $200 a month, no interest for 24 months, the $200 sounds really inexpensive to the patient, rather than, your treatment's $4,800. So keep that in mind. No interest is my go-to option because it's the cheapest for the patient. You can also offer a discount for full advance payment up front, 5% or whatever number you want it to be. If someone says they're going to choose to do, no interest financing, which could cost anywhere from, and I'll talk about some companies, but, 7% all the way up to 15% with some companies, you can decide to give them a slightly bigger discount than 5%, but I offer a 5% discount for a full fee and payment up front. You can do half the balance up front and half upon completion. What I also do, which I didn't list here, is if someone has 5 appointments for a denture, I'll let them pay in 5 appointments. You can also offer a membership plan, and I have one called the Oral Health Savings Plan. If you want to find more about it, just please contact me afterwards, and I'll be able to review that with you. But offer a membership plan for a discount and also loyalty because they're with you for quite some time. And also take all major credit cards. There's some offices that don't take American Express. I think you're being cheap if you do that. But again, I'm direct in New York, just a personal opinion of mine. So now when it comes to financing options, and by the way, I spend about an hour just on financing in my 3.5-hour session. So I will go into this a lot more detail. But these are the different financing options that I offer in my office. I'm going to go over each one in just a really short period of time here. But I offer Care Credit. It's the gold standard. If you take it, great. They're easy. It's fast. Patients get approved. Not every patient, but patients do get approved. The interest rates, or the merchant fee, let's call it, is a little high for the practice. One of the big advantages is the revolving line of credit. Once they spend the money, they can reuse it in the practice. That's a big advantage. One of the big disadvantages of it is that it's retroactive interest. If the patients don't pay their bill in full, they get hit with interest from day one. Okay? And then one of the things you should know is that if you are charging the patient over $1,000, you cannot apply or use the application on the office side of things because you have to wait 3 days to charge them out then. So you want the patient to apply on the consumer side of things. That's one of the tips I give for Care Credit. But it's the gold standard. I think every practice uses it. Lending Club, I use Lending Club, and the only reason I use Lending Club is for treatment plans up to $40,000. Care Credit only does about $20,000. If you're lucky, you can get $25,000, but that's the max Care Credit's going to do. Lending Club will do up to $40,000. That's the only reason I use Lending Club, just so you know. The other advantage
less than $20,000 though. Do you recommend Care Credit, Len? I mean, is Lending Club and Care Credit kind of?
Well, as we go through it, it will depend on some other factors. Care Credit is still easy to use. It's a fast application. there are some disadvantages to the practice in care credit. Care credit is still my favorite one, but there's other ones that are gaining pretty quickly on it. So, like I said, I love care credit, but I use what I can get my patient for. Okay. And I'll talk about some of the advantages here in a second. The thing about Lending Club though is Lending Club doesn't have retroactive interest. So if you don't pay your bill in full, you don't get hit with interest from the get-go. And that's, I'm not the financial advisor for the patient, but I'm always looking out for their best interest. So I have to keep that in mind.
They do a soft pull, right?
Yes, Lending Club does a soft pull. Care Credit's always a hard pull. Correct. Alpheon Credit is another one I use. They do from $250,000 to $25,000. They actually will approve at about a 600 credit score, which is not subprime, but it's lower than what Lending Club and Care Credit approve on. Okay, and they offer no interest. They offer interest, same thing. They're a true healthcare card. The reason I use them is because I had a patient that came in and said, "Do you take this card?" And they had an Alpheon credit card. I said, "Now I do," and I applied for it. An interesting one that's out there is called Scratch Pay. Scratch Pay will approve anywhere from $35 to $10,000. They were in the vet space, hence the name Scratch Pay. They're now gaining in dental. The nice thing is they have a 7% merchant fee for all transactions, no matter what you do with them. The only true no interest plan is called Take 5. And the Take 5 plan is payment now, and then every 2 weeks, 4 payments. And so literally in 5 payments, you're done. And then they have a 1-year plan and a 2-year plan, but those are not no interest. So Scratch Pay is another one I use, and it's been very positive. It's a low for people who don't have the best credit. Quickly gaining on Care Credit, in my opinion, is a company called Lending Points. They are recently partnered with Invisalign. They will approve up to a $15,000 for the loan, a 580 credit score, so not ideal credit either. It's a full soft credit pull. If you use, they do interest and no interest plans. So if they do an interest plan, you're only taking a 1% merchant fee for interest-bearing plans. So if someone does $10,000, it's $100 for the practice, which is a bargain. Okay, so if you are doing interest-bearing plans, Lending Point's awesome, but they also offer no interest, and it's 5% for 6 months to the practice, 7% is 12 months. 12 months is 7%, and 24 months is only 10%, which is probably the lowest on the market. Okay, and it's you can get pre-approvals because there's a soft credit pull as well. And then the last one I've been using is a company called Dental Finance. So they will approve up to $40,000. They're a new one on the market. They're like Lending Tree for dentistry because they have multiple lenders for one application, and there's no cooling off period like you have with Care Credit. So these are the companies I currently use. Like I said, I spend about an hour with this in my 3.5-hour session to go into a lot more detail. But these are my go-to companies right now. So some other power tips. I help my patients fill out their Care Credit application on the consumer side, because if they are denied, I get to learn what their credit score is. And I'll be able to see if I can use any other companies to do it with. That's a big tip. Fill it out in the office. Unless you're in California, you can't do this. Okay? But I help the patient in the operatory. They trust me. I say, "Hey, do you mind if I help you fill out the application?" I type really fast, and it works for them. Don't be afraid to ask about a cosigner. Okay? Ask them if they have a cosigner to see if they can get someone to help get them taken care of there. One thing you have to do is you have to know your numbers. You have to know your numbers. So you have to know that 166 is approximately $4,000 for 24 months. $300 per month is $7,200. $450 is $10,800. You have to know your numbers. And the reason you know your numbers, if somebody says they can budget $300 per month, which is $7,200, but their treatment plan is $10,000, you know that there's no way you can do that with just no interest. So you're going to have to use some interest-bearing plan to get that accomplished. So you keep that in mind, okay? You want to get pre-approvals from companies so there's no risk to the patient because they're soft credit checks. And you want to use verbiage with your patients like easy, affordable, simple. It's a soft credit check. Do not tell a patient, and I heard this from multiple people, we have to go ahead and pull your credit. It's a hard credit check. It takes some time. Stop using terms like that. Patients will not want to do that. But you can really make financing work for the practice.
Just avoid the verbal slap. Yep.
Exactly. So as we kind of wrap up here, so you must track your case acceptance. In order to improve it, you must know it. Okay? The art of the sale starts at the very first patient interaction. You have to listen to your patients. If you can disarm the patient, they will accept treatment if and only if you can find an affordable option for them. Body language can help increase trust with your patients, and you want to use third-party financing to your advantage. So as we wrap up here, a couple of things. I have a Facebook group. It's called Raving Patients, just like the book is, Raving Patients. Get credible, get visible, get more new patients. So if you're interested in it, just join the group. They may ask you a couple of questions. Just tell them you heard about it here. I'll let you in. But it's a group. It just helps on, what we talk about case acceptance there. It's basically to help practices. It started as talking about online reviews, but it's grown from there a lot. There's about 2,700 dentists in there. If you're not part of it, please join. I have a podcast called the Raving Patients Podcast. Comes out every Friday. It's on all the major podcasting networks. If you want to be a guest, let me know. If you listen, let me know. I'm happy to hear I have fans out there. So it's called the Raving Patients Podcast. I have a book. If you are not chosen by Danny as the winner and you want to get a free copy of the book, all you have to do is pay for shipping. I think it's $4.95 for shipping. You can go to dentalstores.com/ravingfreebook, and there's already a coupon applied to that. It's $4.95 for the book. So it's on online reviews, but I know Dan, you read it. That's there. And if you want to take the actual workshop, there's a 50% off coupon you can use. The code is AIM Dental. You can go to workshop.drlentau.com. All the information's on there. The code again is AIM Dental, and it's $225 for the 3.5-hour workshop where we go into these things in a lot more detail and you get a lot more information out of it. So I went a little longer than I wanted to, but a lot of great information. Thank you guys for listening. Danny, you can take some questions and we can take it from there.
Yep, I'll be happy to. And yes, indeed, a lot of great information, a lot of actionable information. I'm really grateful to you for doing it. And I want to underscore the point, which is that if you like this, you're going to love the full series. This was just a free sample. Len repeatedly demonstrates that he practices what he preaches. So this was your free exam. And now you can decide how and whether you want to accept treatment. But I want to thank you again for it, because this is very hard hitting, and you packed a lot into a pretty short period of time. So let's dive into the questions. And the first one I have is how do you handle when a patient can't get financing? You obviously went into that at some length. This was a question I received a little bit earlier, but do you want to elaborate? Well, I guess you talked about various options, but I guess there are those patients who just don't qualify for any financing, probably because of the credit score.
It's pretty bad, unfortunately, when a patient can't get approved for financing, but it does happen, and it tends to run in kind of patterns for me. I'll go like 2 weeks when nobody gets approved, and then 3 weeks where everybody gets approved. Unfortunately, if they don't have the means and they don't have the funds and you can't get the financing, I recommend the co-signer. Follow up with them. I would tell you it's really hard to get those people to do dentistry if they can't get financing. I think that's a big, big problem we have. I've tried to give you some companies out there that do use third-party financing companies or third-party finance companies that will approve patients at lower credit scores, but there's some people who just have really bad credit and they won't approve them. So,
very good. Next question, Dr. Tau, would you suggest the same review on Google, Yelp, and Facebook? In other words, one happy patient can give 3 reviews. And I guess my follow-up question was, if so, how do you get them to do that as easily and path of least resistance as possible?
So the average patient is not going to write a review on all 3 sites. It's right. Very rare to see that, because you have to go on all 3 sites and do it. From a perspective of, you do not want the same review on Google and Yelp. That actually hurts you. So I don't recommend that just in and of itself. As I say that, I did have a patient today who came in yesterday, who came in on Tuesday, put a review on Facebook and Google. that was doubled up. So, I mean, look, I'm a Bird Eye. I mean, I work for Bird Eye. Bird Eye has an option for the patient to put a review on Google and Facebook, and sometimes they do it twice. It's very rare and far between that they actually do it.
Virginia actually, who's my life and business partner, does our work with the reviews. She said she thinks that a review posted to Google can be cross-posted to Facebook, and we use Bird Eye.
With Bird Eye, so. with Bird Eye, it can be, but I think that's a post, not a review itself. There's a review tab that they can put the review on. So yes, you're correct, but it's a little bit different there. So not the exact same thing.
Yep, I understand. Can you talk about some of the ways you interact with patients that may be different than most dentists? I guess in addition to what you've already shared, any other tidbits?
Like I said, talk to them after hours, call them, give them my cell phone number.
Be accessible.
I'm very happy I'm very accessible. They have my cell phone number. They don't abuse it. I have a product that I use in my office called TrueLark. So TrueLark is a phone answering product. So after hours, it will answer the phone and it says, this office uses TrueLark, the latest and greatest technology in phone answering. It interacts with them like a person, and it can schedule appointments via the phone, but it's done through text messaging. What it does is it sends me a voicemail immediately. I call patients back all the time because I literally click on the link in the text message it sends me, and I listen to the voicemail. So I just make myself, even though I'm in Florida, I still make myself accessible to them.
Well, it's so critical, and you're maybe talking about patients of record, but I'm sure that you would agree the same goes for prospective patients. You got to imagine
more for prospective patients because I want to impress them from the first call I make to them.
Good. Yeah, because the thing that we want to realize is that here's somebody who, for whatever reason, is reaching out to your dental practice. And they've motivated themselves. All right, I'm going to do this. If they don't connect, they're moving on to the next practice. So that's why time is of such essence when you're talking about this, and you get that. And I just want to make sure everybody else gets it as well.
I'll tell you a quick story, Danny, and this goes back many years ago. But I was actually giving a seminar in Calgary when this happened. I got a chat from one of the first chat services I was using, which was a managed chat service. And the woman said, "Hey, I'm interested in an all-on-4. My teeth are all falling out of my head." That was the message that was gotten to me. And I called her from Calgary, and I told her I was calling from Calgary at the time. It was on the weekend. She said she reached out to 20 different offices, and nobody called her back except me. So, and she came in and did it all on 4. I mean, she actually spent like $35,000 in the office, but it was because I was so responsive that she did the dentistry. And that sometimes you have to be available to the patient. That's just what it takes.
Right. What it takes. Exactly. Okay. We got time for a couple more questions. We got many more than we're going to be able to get to today, but Len will follow up with you. I'll make sure that he sees all the questions that have been posted, so nobody will be left out. Given that so much effective communication depends on the nonverbal, that is the face-to-face component, how do you connect with phone callers to make that great first impression?
So when they make an appointment or when they're scheduling my schedule, I simply take their cell phone number, and when I'm driving home or I'm on the weekend and it's a Monday, I will look at my system. I have access remotely to Dentrix, and I will grab the phone and I will call them on the phone and tell them, "Hi, this is Dr. Tau. I know you have an appointment with me. Here's my cell phone number. I would love to chat before you come in." And that's how I start the conversation. A lot of times my patients are scheduling, whether it's on TrueLark, which is our phone system, or LocalMed, which is our online booking appointment thing. And I'm getting it, and I call them as soon as they make the appointment because I want to see if it's an emergency. I call them when I can, and they pick up because I know they just made the appointment. So I'm just very responsive. That's how I always am. And the people that know me,
you always are.
My life like that.
Yeah. So, well, you and Howard Ferran are people who give more back and of their time than anybody I know in dentistry, and you're totally accessible. It's rare that I even get your voicemail when I call you, and I know you're a very busy man. In fact, you've got another presentation to give this evening, don't you?
Yeah, and as soon as I'm done here, I'm jumping on another presentation.
All right, so we're going to keep moving here.
It's funny. It's funny, Danny. You said that I give back, and I really appreciate that. But I do it because it makes happy clients, and I want to make happy patients. Well, that's the reason I do what I do.
Well, it's consistent with my philosophy. Ben Franklin called it "do well by doing good," and that what goes around comes back. Is your schedule booked to meet a specific production per hour per day goal?
We have a goal. We have a daily goal. We have a monthly goal. Everything we do in my practice, in my life, has always been goal driven. Look, there's some days we just don't hit our goals, so we try to make our goal every day, but sometimes it's not possible. But we have a daily goal that we do try to hit. It's not scheduled like that. I don't have block scheduling or anything. But if we're below our goal, look, I'm trying to get people out of hygiene to do that schedule that day. Like I said, if I have an opening in the schedule, and there's more openings now because of COVID, then I'm pulling people out of hygiene as often as possible to have them do dentistry, even if I want to give them a little discount to do it then. And they know, hey, if they don't do it then, they're not getting a discount when they come back.
Okay. I have an insurance practice, and taking which I take to mean a lot of the patients are third party reimbursement. Taking third party financing really reduces the amount of money I get paid. How do you handle this?
That's a big question I get. It's tough because my philosophy, as I mentioned, just from people with Groupon, is I'd rather have 40% of something than 0% of zero. If you take insurance, that's your marketing expense. That's what insurance is. It's a marketing expense. You're taking a 30% hits. And if you don't take financing, the patients who need insurance work or work with insurance companies are not going to do treatment. So you have to accept the financing. And that's why I like lending points, because lending point is a 1% hit to the office. You find a monthly, and by the way, I forgot to mention to you, I am very comfortable asking the patient three questions. How much of a monthly budget can you afford? Do you have good or bad credit? And I'm not prying. I just say, hey, I need to know it. Do you have good or bad credit? And do you have a budget in mind for your dentistry? And if they tell me they can afford $300 or $400 a month, I try to find a plan. Hey, I can find a plan for $300. It's over 36 months. I don't tell them what the interest rate is. I just say I can get you a plan for $300 a month, and this is what it costs. They assign the truth in lending documents. I'm not a financial advisor like that.
A dentistry is a very intimate business. You've got to really get personal with people, which is why building trust at the first impression, the first touch point, and all subsequent touch points is so essential to success. So I think that's going to about do it. We've got another dozen or so questions. They're all good, and some of them were similar. I tried to encapsulate them in the ones that I suggested. And just a reminder, Len will reach out with you directly, because we'll provide the registration contact information with him on DDS-GP, Modento, other patient financing options. Please handle me with care form, which were some requests we got. And I will also announce the winner of Len's terrific book, Raving Patients, subsequent in the follow-up. There's just too many here, and I didn't come up with a very scientific message. And flipping a coin when you've got 20 to choose from is not very efficient. So at this point, I just want to thank you again, Len, for a terrific presentation. And why don't you let us know how people can get in touch with you?
Well, here's my contact information. Again, I'm usually very available. My email address is on here. It's len@drlentau.com. And my cell phone number is on here. People call me all the time on my cell phone. It's 215-292-2100. That's my personal cell phone number. And I always tell people the only time I'm not able to call is if I'm sleeping, which is, from usually 1 o'clock in the morning to about 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm flying in the plane, so I can't talk, or I'm drilling in someone's mouth. And as soon as I stop drilling, I'll call you back. So those are the only times I never pick up the phone. So.
That sounds reasonable. Okay, well, thank you again. And I want to let you all know again that you'll soon receive an email with instructions on how to receive your CE credit, thanks to my life and business partner, Virginia, who's responsible for doing all that technical stuff. And I now want to invite you to mark your calendar for Thursday, December 17th at 6 p.m. Central Time, because we've got a special treat in store for you. Normally, we take the December holiday month off, but we decided instead this year to share a novel, exciting, and valuable holiday event with you. My guests on December 17th will be Distinguished Toastmaster and Chief Possibility Officer Ellen Schnurr and her business partner, Major League pitcher and World Series ring holder Jim Messier. He was actually his team was featured in the movie and book Moneyball. So any of you sports fans probably know him, and you'll get a chance to meet him. This dynamic duo, disguised as Odd Couple, will deliver an exciting and interactive session entitled From Fear to Eternity. So join Jim and Ellen and myself for a laugh on your feet, or given that it's going to be Zoom-based, make that your chair, an interactive session where you and your team will laugh and connect in surprising new ways. It promises to be a fun and informative opportunity to build team confidence and camaraderie. Again, it all happens on Thursday, December 17th at 6 p.m. Central. Until then, this is Danny Bobrow thanking you again for your ongoing commitment to practice perfection. And one last time, thank you, Dr. Tau. It was great.
Thanks very much for having me, Danny. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Good night, everybody.